Aha! I have a mute button, everyone. Ah. Professional streamer. 5 out of 10 might recommend. There we go. So, in the first part, we did a review of that initial reproach. Yep, pro stream. There we go, Noctis. By the way, thank you all for saying so. You can always type mic muted too if you wanted. Because I am a professional. So yeah, it was that, and then we established that, look, the core dice rolling mechanic for a game of horror, of humor, of fantasy, in a sense, or street level, modern day, whatever you want to explore, or Eldritch horror, moral ambiguity. All of this is conducted through a dice pool. And that's the way that, if a dice roll is even needed at all. This is a storyteller system. And so hopefully, hang on everyone, I need to substantiate here. Blood in the water, my friends. If you do need to roll dice, you build a dice pool. Nice and easy. You talk to your storyteller. You might negotiate back and forth about what the dice pool is, or if there's a modifier to it, and then you roll. And before we get back to the book with, what were those symbols and everything? I wanted to provide an example to you all. And we have our ambient music. Of course, we have this chamber where the vampires of the Tuesday game, the Redeemer, were called before the sheriff. Interesting. Because so far those vampires have experienced horror and humor. They've experienced something more in the realm of fantasy, despite them being in Cleveland, Ohio, July 2023. And yet this exists and probably has for some time. And some dice rolls were needed, but not always. Anyway, let us continue. We had, our example of humor was Sweet Rabies Bay. Again, my humble request in any VTM games that you run in the future, please put a bottle of Sweet Rabies Bay somewhere in it for me. As an indulgence. Whether or not you run a story, maybe your character just references it. We have the build-up. We have this. We have what? Get this out of here! What is this? I meant roll 20. Oh, whew. Oh, I hope no one was actually watching. Oh my gosh, that'd be terrible and embarrassing. So here we are, the mean streets of Cleveland, in our Red Deemer game. Well, I guess no one was watching. I didn't even get a lull or anything. Alright, well, I'll have to try harder next time. Anyway. We have a character. Let's see. Do I have this character pulled up? No. let's say that Cheryl Page, okay? Here's our sheet, and if you're like, oh, dots, oh, that makes so much more sense. We have attributes and skills. This is where we form our dice pools. Ah, okay. Let's say that Cheryl is walking down the street as she pleases, all right? She's doing her thing. And she needs to... she runs into someone. Like, bumps into it. She has her nose in her notebook, as she's often want to do. She bumps into someone. Hey, Missy, watch where you're going. And this person is being very, even cartoonishly belligerent. How can Cheryl solve this situation? And if you in chat have any... I like chat being not just conversational, but interactive. How do you think Cheryl, walking down the street in Cleveland... Well, explosives could be an option. Let's say that she doesn't have any, and that would... that may very well violate the Masquerade, or just, give her final death, along with the belligerent. What is a combination of attribute and skill that we can make in order to try and overcome a person who's might be looking for a fight? Well, if we know that this character is a business, kind of a no nonsense business. Here, I'll show you. Here we go. Here is Cheryl Page. She needs to get to work. She doesn't have time for this. So Vancouver is suggesting intimidation to try and get this person to back off. Okay. And in this case, Vancouver is suggesting either manipulation, which is this social attribute, plus intimidation, or even manipulation plus brawl. Now, Cheryl might not want to actually come into physical contact with this troglodyte. She has places to be, things to do. And she needs to get this person to leave while also not losing her, not a mechanical composure, but not losing her composure. She is a proper Ventru. She has a certain dignitas that she has been instilled to carry. So in this case, while she could throw a fist, maybe it's easier to stare down this belligerent. Now, the dice pool for that, and by the way, she does have a specialty with Icy Stare. The dice pool for this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we could throw in an extra, because all she does, she narrates. I simply look up from my notes. I say nothing. I just stare. Alright, so our dice pool is 6, and we have a specialty for the circumstance that is 7. Now, are there any other conditions that could give extras, plus or minus? In this case, no. Like, we'll say it is what it is. You know, there's no backup one or the other. This is someone. Maybe he's drunk or he's just super upset. Could we resolve this by just simply saying, Cheryl, you would normally be throwing 7 dice. And and this was only going to be like getting over a grumble, but no. We have a cantankerous person who probably feels like he wants to throw down and he can take you on. And in all honesty, everyone, if we take a look at the physical attributes of Cheryl Page, if she's presumed to be a human, she is not presumed to be a power lifter, nor someone who is particularly capable in that fashion. Look, no dots here, very few dots here. So we have someone who can't just be automatically won over, or in this case, intimidated. So now what we do, we are going to indicate manipulation to build our dice pool. Noctis says definitely skips leg day and arm day and every day. Is there a pool size modifier? Yes, because we are allowing her icy stare. We're allowing her icy stare to come into play. So let's add 1. And then we hit submit. What is the difficulty of this? Now, even if we had the difficulty lower and we kept it at 2, which was straightforward by the book, we weren't giving the freebie because this is very much like we want the roll to see if there's drama. Will it be opposed? No, we're not going to have this belligerent have an opposed roll, but we will set a threshold. So this person is enough of a bully. You know what? We'll say that this is 3. So the storyteller says that the difficulty value is 3. We've now made our dice pool. We have our goal in mind about how many successes we will need in order to stare down this person. And let's check out our results. Here we go. We have intimidation and manipulation. There were 6 dice rolled here, plus a hunger die. Does this version have a maximum? I think it was 5. I can go back into it real quick, Coffee. We needed 3 successes, and wouldn't you know, Cheryl has 3 of 3 successes. And we can have some fun. We can narrate. Aha! Cheryl glances up from her notebook, saying nothing, though perhaps the twitch in her upper lip is like a discordant violin streaking, sending an agonizing and fearful tone, carried by the glare of her eyes, such that this would-be street thug simply mutters and curses profanities, but backs away. Cheryl, feeling smug, accomplished, she has asserted dominance. I might have even given her an extra +1 to her dice pool if she decided to T-pose on this character. Have fun. You can meme a little bit in World of Darkness too, everyone. She simply looks back down and continues walking while reviewing her business notes. And thus, we had our example. Now, while Cheryl is walking... Oh, Clyde, you're at it again. Clyde comes zooming around the corner with police in hot pursuit. And much like Ivy had to in the Redeemer, we now have Cheryl needing to dodge out of the way of an incoming car. Well, let's go back to Cheryl. What do you all think we would need in order to jump out of the way of a car? Probably not charisma politics. I don't think we're trying to convince someone of something. Composure? Stamina? Well, maybe if she wants to stand there and let the car wreck itself on her. In a sense. Ah, Coffee Cat says dexterity athletics. Can she bunch up her muscles? And get out of the way of the car in time? Well, Cheryl, let's find out. Unfortunately, athletics isn't adding anything. And dexterity, she's got 2. Vancouver says, joke suggestion, dex plus persuasion. She's so ventru, she requests the car not run into her. Or maybe she gives an icy stare to Clyde as Clyde is driving. Clyde realizes that I really shouldn't be hitting this person and might make a corrective action. I don't know. I might allow a dex intimidation. How quickly, she hears this. So it's not an issue of perception. How quickly can she focus her eyes and train them? That might be a special accommodation, but Coffee Cat, for just a jumping out of the way, for, that pure kind of reflexive action, we're going dexterity athletics. Now, are we modifying this? We don't have any particular specialties. Now, what we can do, while I did joke about the icy stare, what we can do is say that Clyde, having met and known and worked with Cheryl, might recognize that she is on the street and would be more likely to try and recover the control of the car. Now, in this case, we're going to have that be a benefit to Cheryl. You could call for a contested roll between Clyde and Cheryl. Though, to keep things simple, and it could still be presented this way, let's say... And yeah, so we have a -5 and a +5 on this sheet, Coffee. Let's give Cheryl 2 more dice to her pool to reflect the fact that Clyde is going out of his way to not try and hit her, though it still may happen. Now, this one, we'll submit. We'll say that this is a difficulty 2. It's pretty straightforward. She heard the screeching tires, so it's not like it was a complete surprise, but things are moving kind of quickly. So we won't say this is 1 success. We'll look for 2. And so we have our parameters, right? We built our dice pool. And now let's submit. And see what happens. And what happens is Roll20 is taking its time. Hey, there we go. The internet, everyone. So, Cheryl, rolling 4 dice, right? She had 2 decks, 0 athletics, but was given a bonus of 2, rolled 4. One of those being her hunger dice. What is a hunger? It was mentioned. We'll get into it. This is the last example of what we've done so far. Congratulations, Cheryl. You have your 2 successes. Now remember, a success is a 6+ on a D10. As we can see, this... Oh, look at that onk. Oh, look at that onk. Wait a minute, we've seen that before. So she rolled an 8. That's a success. 8 is greater than 6. She rolled another 8. Up here, 8, 9, 9. Woo, Cheryl, you're knocking it out of the park. Good job. And Cheryl continues to unlive another night, not being run over by a wild car. Pretty straightforward, right? We talk about the scene or the situation. If we want to hem-haw or just go, you know what? You have more than enough dice. I'm just going to give it to you. Right? So we describe, we negotiate. You build your dice pool of whatever's appropriate. And cast the bones and read the results. As the haruspecs that you are. So congratulations. You did it. Now let's come back here. Oh, actually, before we come back here. I need to turn down the music. There we go. And let's get some other music going on now. We are going to go with... All right, we have our dice pool results. Now, we didn't get any criticals, but that's fine. It doesn't happen, unless you're rolling a huge dice pool. So we know that we're looking for 6 pluses. If you roll a number of successes equal to or exceeding the difficulty number, that's a win. Congrats. A result of 10 on 2 regular dice is a critical success. A critical success counts as 2 additional successes above the 2 10s. So 4 total successes. In prior editions, you might have experienced, well, if you get a 10, that's just, it floats 1 extra. In here, there's a minimum. You need 2. Every 2 gives you 2. Not every 1 gives you 1. A critical success counts as 2 additional successes above the 2 10s. As you perform... Aw. Thank you very much, Julia. And welcome. Welcome to the Hero Zone. As you perform your task much faster, more stylishly, or more thoroughly than normal. A winning roll containing at least 1 critical success is called a critical win, or sometimes just a critical. And then we come here, and this was the, oh my god, I gotta memorize this stuff. You don't. This symbol of the Camarilla, this just means a success. This is a symbol that means 6, 7, 8, or 9 on a D10. The symbol with the stars is a 10, right? Ooh, 10 on a 10. You get the shiny little, you get the twinkly effect. See? 1 through 5, 6 through 9, 10. With each pair being worth more successes, right? This is if you're using maybe Roll20, or you have the special, the themed Vampire the Masquerade dice. Otherwise, if you're playing with normal D10s, you're playing with normal D10s. Though in the books, if you see references to this symbol, that's what it means. Success, potential, critical. And remember, you need 2. So we have 2 stars. So here's our example. Martin, with a dice pool of 6, rolls 3 failures and 3 successes. Right? Each of these are a success. This is a potential. Oh, but look. 2 of those were 10s. And so this is actually 5 successes. 5 successes. 4 for the critical, plus 1 for the regular. Freya, with a dice pool of 5, rolls 2 failures and 3 10s. This equals 5 successes. 4 for the critical and 1 for the single. Because remember, it goes by the pair. Freya might want to use willpower, detailed here shortly, to re-roll the 2 failures, hoping for a 4th. That would bring her result to a whopping 8 successes. 4 for each pair of 10s. Have we improved that 2 out of 10 rating? I hope so. The number of successes exceeding the difficulty of the roll is called the margin. If the difficulty was 4 and you rolled 7 successes, your margin is 3. Damage, many power effects, and some other rules use margin to calculate the degree of the effect. So you have this threshold to do the thing at all, and then you have the extras on top of it to see how well or powerfully you do the thing. And those would have specific circumstances called for. So in a general sense, you don't always have to worry about the margin. It might not be applicable, or if for some reason Cheryl got 10 successes on a limited dice pool, like everything was 10s, you might just say that was awesome. And you have Cheryl, not so meek, but certainly an unsuspecting executive assistant, absolutely do a flawless cartwheel over the car, landing on her feet and continuing to walk without skipping a beat. But also in a way that doesn't break the Masquerade, because she did so well. Because you shouldn't break the Masquerade, alright, everyone? Just trust me, bro. Even outside those circumstances, the storyteller can narrate a degree of success depending on the size of the margin rolled. In an automatic win, the margin is always 0, right? So it's a freebie that you accomplish it, but you don't accomplish it with any particular flair or panache. There's also a very fun thing that we did get to show off in that first session, which is win at a cost. If your roll includes any successes but fails, the storyteller may offer you to win at a cost. Now, could you as the player prompt the storyteller? You could. I'll let you weigh how appropriate that is, because you shouldn't beg for those. But the rule of cool is a cool rule. And your storyteller, let's see, so to achieve your goal, something might happen to make things worse for you anyway. You take damage, attract unfriendly and powerful notice, lose something you value, etc. Any player, including you or the storyteller, can suggest the cost. Generally, it should scale with the number of missing successes. If it's too high, you can always opt to fail instead. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Now, in this case, if Cheryl failed by 1, okay? 1 success, you needed 2 to pass. I might have looked at Cheryl if Dark Wolf playing Cheryl didn't prompt a win at a cost. I might look at Dark Wolf and say, well, Cheryl's in a bit of a pickle because right now she's going to be plastered by the front of Clyde's car. I presume you don't want that to happen. And what I will do is, you have 1 success. So we'll say that I will let you leap out of the way. However, you get scraped up. Maybe you take a point of damage, or I'll let you jump out of the way, but you fall on your butt on the sidewalk, and your notebook with all your notes lands in an errant pile of doggy doo. That notebook is important to Cheryl, and will now a very prim and proper executive assistant must decide to throw away her notebook or interact with the gift that, unless cleaned off, is a gift that will continue to give. And so that puts her in a bit of a bind, but also that doesn't bind her up under the front axle of an errant car. And so she might say, you know what, I'm willing to jump backwards and have my notebook fall in doggy doo if it means that I don't get run over. The deal is struck. Cheryl, it plays out as it does, and you may very well continue onward to work, but now you have another situation in hand. Nice and easy, huh? If a character fails an action, by the way, these are good side notes to read. I'm not reading every little thing, but please do read these side notes. If a character fails an action, they can sometimes try again. After all, failing to pick a lock does not mean the character can never insert a lockpick into that door again. To justify such an attempt, circumstances need to merit it. The character obtains a better set of lockpicks, for example, or their skill has improved since last time. Characters can repeat most actions in combat, chases, or other conflicts. Conflict is inherently stressful, and failure often carries its own cost in such circumstances. Total failure. If your role includes no successes at all, your character has totally failed. Total failure sometimes means only that your character didn't achieve the desired result. Sometimes it means dire consequences occur. The storyteller defines what total failure means according to each situation and circumstances, and decides whether you can try again after a total failure. Example, Sam rolls no successes when attempting a dangerous jump between two rooftops. Her character promptly falls to a meeting with the only thing that is always there for you when you fall, the cold, hard ground. Teamwork. If two or more characters can effectively work together on a task, such as investigating a crime scene or tag teaming a mark in a confidence game, roll the largest pool among the participants, adding one additional die for each character assisting that has at least one dot in the skill involved. If no skill is involved, anyone can assist. Ah, willpower. Oh, that's the thing that allowed a reroll, right? Yes. Characters may spend 1 point of willpower to reroll up to 3 regular dice on regular, not blood dice or hunger dice, and we'll get to that. On any one skill or attribute roll, including a roll involving vampiric disciplines. Characters may not spend willpower to reroll hunger dice or a tracker roll, such as willpower or humanity. A spent point of willpower counts as having sustained a level of superficial damage to willpower and is marked as such. As it's on a tracker, right? So it's a resource you manage. Your health, your blood, your willpower. These are things that can be expended for various uses. And in this case, you sacrifice one of your points of willpower to reroll. Though the cost is, in times where you need to keep yourself together, you may not have the ability to reroll, or you might have less dice with your willpower roll to resist things. Again, is the juice worth the squeeze? This is a game of economics in that sense. What is the price you are willing to pay to achieve your goals? Which is also why you recover willpower at the end of stories or sessions, or as appropriate, if you have worked toward a goal or an ideal or something else you've established with your storyteller, because you feel accomplished, you feel determined, and that renews your willpower, your determination to push forward. Checks. Oh, have a good night, Coffee. Thank you for hanging out. Unlike rolls, checks normally use a single die. The player makes a check by rolling one die, attempting to achieve a target number of 6 or higher. Vampire primarily uses checks to determine hunger gain. See hunger, feeding, and rouse checks. Characters may not use willpower to reroll checks. Automatic wins and taking half never apply to checks. It's a little bit looking ahead. A rouse check means that you have to like, how there's the joke about manually breathing? In Vampire, you kind of have to manually get your vitae flowing, right? So it's forcing your blood to pump through your body and to manifest maybe a particular supernatural ability. Now, did that ability, which caused a rousing of the blood, consume that blood? In that case, you roll a rouse check. 1d10. You roll a 6 or higher. Nope. You still have the same amount of blood in you. You roll a 1 through 5, and yes, your power goes off. However, you're hungrier, because your body used up that blood that it was carrying in order to manifest it. You actually got to see your fuel gauge tick down. Instead of, just a quick, I'm just going across town. You notice nothing. By the way, I think I said blood pool earlier. That was from a prior edition. This is more of a hunger thing. Contests. Storytellers use contests to model direct opposition, ergo, hacking a monitored system, sneaking past a guard searching for you, or seducing an undercover vice cop. In a contest, the acting character and their opponent each build a dice pool. This process does not have to use the same dice pool. The storyteller might tell the sneaking character to use dexterity plus stealth, but roll wits plus awareness for the searching guard. Basic contests go like this. Oh, and also welcome back, Natural 20s. By the way, thank you for the raid earlier. I'm sorry I was on break. I didn't catch it when you first came in, but I sincerely appreciate it. So, describe what you want to do, what you want your character to do, and how. The storyteller decides someone opposes your effort and tells you which of your character's traits to use to assemble a dice pool. The storyteller chooses which of the opponent's traits to use to assemble a dice pool. Each contestant rolls their dice pool and counts their successes. If the acting character rolled equal to or more than the number of successes rolled by the opposing character, the test is a win. So if you're the one trying to sneak and you tie, you win. However, if you're the one trying to detect as the player character over the SPC or the NPC, or if it's opposed against another player, in this case, the storyteller determines, in that case, who is the one who is the actor, right? So you build the dice pool, they roll their dice. If the acting character rolled equal to, I'm sorry, I read that part. Then there's also just taking half. To reduce the number of dice rolls in a session, storytellers should feel free to take half for SPC rolls during basic contests. To take half, count the number of dice in the opposition pool, divide it in half, rounding down, and that's the number of successes they got. There you go. Right, so how you have automatic wins, but that's that's for just accomplishing a thing you alone are doing. In this case, taking half is an abbreviation for a contest. Conflicts. Situations involving basic contests that result in damage, physical or mental, are called conflicts. The basic conflict rules value simplicity and speed of play, and they apply to any hostile interaction, from street fighting to particularly vicious courtly debate. Storytellers and players should invest these basic conflicts with as much narrative detail as they like, clothing the bare dice results in narrative flesh and gore. For advanced conflict systems, you can read later. Alright, so here's an example. Conflict happens in a flurry of blows, rhetorical or physical. When each participant in the conflict has acted once or declined to act, that defines a turn. Remember, there's the time-based terminology from before. Turns take as much time as the narrative indicates they should. 2 gunshots might happen in less than a second and end a fight, while a 3-hour series of innuendos and courtesies might compose the first turn of an all-night seduction attempt. Thus, one roll does not necessarily represent one swing of a baseball bat, unless the storyteller says it does. At the start of every turn of the conflict, each player declares their intent. What? Oh, here we go. My intent is to raid. Welcome, raiders. Everyone, welcome VexFX and crew to the Hero Zone. We are going over the rules to Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. We're taking it easy. Just as this channel is an extension of a brick and mortar game store, that's what we're doing. We're sitting down at our FLGS, our friendly local game store. We have the book cracked open. We're sharing stories. We're going through it page by page. And we're just having fun exploring Vampire the Masquerade. Yep, you do indeed, Nuclear Rose, and thank you very much for the follow. We are now. Oh, I forgot to tell this to our 2 followers from earlier. I got so caught up. Once we hit 4,000 Twitch followers, everyone, I'm gonna be having an event through the channel in our Discord, where I'm gonna be giving away a $400 pre-painted Gargantuan Tiamat miniature with free US shipping to whoever wins it, as a way to celebrate 4,000 Twitch followers. So I appreciate all of you. Now, if any of you are lurking, you came in a raid, or you found yourself here, if I've earned a follow, hey, that gets us a couple steps closer. I think we're 200-ish people away. It gets close, and it can go pretty quick, too. All right, Be Well Vex, thank you for dropping in. For those of you who came over from Vex's channel, you are very welcome here. This is an interactive, participatory workshop. If you have stories to share, questions to ask, you're very much welcome to do so. I don't want this to just be me lecturing and drinking an arguable substance in front of you. So at the start of, all right, where was I? I'm sorry, 3-hour series. Yeah, there's that. At the start of every turn of the conflict, each player declares their intent, such as Vex raiding into us, what they are trying to achieve. This could be anything from trying to tackle the driver of an escaping motorcycle to assisting in the seduction of a ghoul by distracting his dominator to simply taking cover. Yep, so this is the 5th edition, Nuclear Rose. If you have no experience with it, I think you'll find a lot of similarities throughout the editions. Some terms or some things might be a little bit different, but if you have questions, or you say, oh, I remember, and you want to share some of your member berries with us, you're welcome to do so, Rose. So here's an example. Fabian, Tracy, and Leah have been ambushed in an old church and are now fighting for their lives. Going left to right across the table, the storyteller asks them to describe their intended actions. Fabian wants to dive for cover. Tracy hoses bullets downrange, and Leah desperately tries to fend off a crazed, hook-wielding attacker. Once all players have decided on their course of action, the storyteller makes the same decisions for all NPCs, right? And then tells the troupe which dice pools to build. The players then roll to attempt it. Example, no one attacks Fabian, Tracy is charged by her target, and Leah's attacker keeps attacking. Now we have our conflict pool. The dice pool each participant uses in a conflict turn is called their conflict pool. In a fight, the conflict pool might be strength plus brawl, or composure plus firearms. In a debate, it might be charisma plus persuasion, or manipulation plus etiquette. Characters might change pools during a conflict. For example, if they pick up a tire iron or change debate tactics from flattery to bullying. And clearly, in court, if someone said, please no bully, well, then they are a target. Here's the example continued. Tracy rolls composure plus firearms against difficulty 2. Her target is in the open, coming right at her. while Leia engages in a strength plus brawl versus dexterity plus melee contest with the hook wielder. The storyteller tells Fabian that he finds cover without needing to roll, since he was not attacked this turn. Both the attacker and defender roll their pools simultaneously in a basic conflict. As with other basic contests, the side that scores the most successes wins their turn of that conflict. The winner subtracts the loser's successes from their total and applies the remainder as damage to one of the loser's trackers, willpower or health. If the conflict is one-sided, such as when the defender is trying to avoid getting shot, only the attacker can inflict damage. If both participants are able to cause harm to their opponent, the conflict is two-sided, with both sides counting as attackers. In this case, the actions of both parties are merged into a single conflict roll. A tie results in both parties inflicting damage on the other with a win margin of 1. You know, the two fists coming together, pass, and so they mutually would hit each other and knock each other out. So we have, you remember I asked you what do you think dodging is? There's a suggestion, dexterity plus athletics. It could be something else if you can make a strong enough case, but traditionally, we have dodging. Ranged weapons are handled in a way. If there's multiple opponents, I'm not going to read every little bit of the book. I want you to go out and get it yourself. Support your friendly local game store. And if you don't have one, I know a guy who can get a book out to you. Let's work something out. Nuclear Rose says, started Coteries of New York recently, but I got interrupted by Baldur's Gate 3, the clash of the venerable roleplay systems. I hope when you finish Baldur's Gate 3, you can go back to Coteries of New York and enjoy the story, Rose. Who goes first? That old question of initiative. This question mostly arises during physical combat. In debates, having the last word may be more valuable than dropping the first allegation. Unless one side has surprise, usually resulting from a success on an earlier test, perhaps of tactics or sneaking to set up an ambush, characters act in descending order of action. Close combat between already engaged parties goes first, followed by ranged combat, followed by newly initiated physical combat, followed by everything else. If necessary, break ties by comparing dexterity plus wits, or if equal, by dots of the skill used. Damage was discussed. Very simple concept. The tracker on your character sheet is no different than your hit points on another type of character sheet. I won't need to read through all of this here. Again, I would urge you. This should make sense with everything that's been said, but if you want to read it specifically, hey, get the book and support your local store in doing so. Now, there are two types of damage. In the storyteller system, damage comes in two types. Superficial, causes bruising, sprains, and the like, but are not immediate life-threatening injury. Fists, kicks, non-lethal weapons such as tasers do superficial damage to humans. Standard weapons do superficial damage to vampires. Superficial damage in social conflict means embarrassment or a bruised ego, and has no lasting effect on the target's image of others or themselves. This right here means that if you were to use a standard pistol against a vampire, well, they don't really need their liver anymore, and so the bullet that would be lodged in a vampire's liver is just like, Wow, that was really inconvenient. So it's like a scrape or a bruise. Aggravated damage. Causes broken bones, wounds, and life-threatening injuries. Sharp and piercing weapons do aggravated damage to humans. Normally, only fire, sunlight, and the claws and teeth of some supernatural creatures do aggravated damage to vampires. Attacks that reveal secret knowledge about the target or attacks from close friends and trusted figures do aggravated damage to willpower in a social contest. So you track your damage as you would. Once the character sustains enough damage of either type or a mix to fill their tracker, they are impaired. Impaired characters lose 2 dice from all relevant dice pools. Physical pools from impaired health, social and mental pools from impaired willpower, and any other pools the storyteller believes to be similarly weakened. At the storyteller's discretion, mortal SPCs are incapacitated at this stage. For every level of damage of either kind, superficial or aggravated, that a character takes while impaired, convert one previously sustained superficial to aggravated on a 1-for-1 basis. Turn the slash that you would put in the box into an X on the track. Remember to have superficial damage as usual before converting it. As, if you're a vampire, like someone has a little pocket knife and they flick at it, yeah. I mean, it might cut you, but it's not necessarily going to do much, if anything. A character with their tracker completely filled with aggravated damage is out of the conflict, possibly permanently. In physical combat, they are comatose or dead if mortal, or fall into torpor if a vampire. So this goes through a way to deal damage, physically or mentally. Emotional damage. And you know what? You're a vampire. Yeah, you don't need your liver, but also you can drink some blood and kind of go, and then whoop, you can recover in ways that humans can't. So here's the rules on healing. Either superficial or aggravated. And always bear this in mind, this system was made for flexibility. Here are different circumstances that might be commonly compared roles. Look through it, refer to it, modify it if you need to. Three turns and out, we strongly recommend ending conflicts after roughly 3 turns, unless everyone is still having fun. Too much dice rolling slows down the drama and becomes harder and harder to describe creatively. If the storyteller and players want the old school feeling of fighting down to the last health box, they're welcome to do so, of course. But for the rest of us, here's a few ways to decide who won if you've gone 3 rounds and both sides are still standing. An optional rule, as many of these have been. But remember, pacing is everything in your story. And we even see this in Cyberpunk Red. Cyberpunk Red is a very lethal system, and there's a... unlike in something like Pathfinder or D&D, you don't have just, all these cure spells to get up and come back to life and do all this other, quick and instantaneous recovery. If you are shot in Cyberpunk, you might not be able to use your arm for a while or at all, or have an arm. And conflict in that sort of a setting, and even in the World of Darkness, might be settled very quickly. Because when you start getting those negatives to your dice pool, ooh. Experience and improvement. You get experience points in the game here. Storyteller awards each player 1 experience point per session played, plus 1 point at the end of each story.
In shorter chronicles and others where more rapid improvement adds to the drama, the storyteller may choose to award 2 points. This is people do this in all different ways. There is no one way to hand out EXP. Depends on how quickly you want to be able to raise things up, or the drama, or what was invested into it. As Derek runs his games and Coffee Cat has adopted, everyone gets one, and then there's a pool of others that are handed out by people who have who chat and or the players agree had the best one-liner, had the best moment, had the most impact on the story of the night. So there's some bonuses there. You can just keep it flat. Hey, thanks for playing. See you next week, everyone. Everyone takes 2. And then when you do something super dramatic, everyone gets 3, and you don't do any sort of reviews or whatever. However you want to do it, do it. And then we have the golden rule here before we get into, well, not what is going to happen in this workshop, because we've reviewed the rules. Now, sure, there are circumstances that will modify the things that we've covered and you know, will specifically tie into one thing or another. But this is it. I mean, we've gone through it all tonight. This is the core. This is the engine of the storyteller system as expressed through Vampire the Masquerade. This is the most important rule of all and the only real rule worth following. There are no rules. This game should be whatever you want it to be. Whether that's a nearly diceless chronicle of in-character socialization or a long-running tactical campaign with each player controlling a small coterie of vampires. If the rules in this book interfere with your enjoyment of the game, change them. The world is far too big. No set of inflexible rules can possibly reflect it. Think of this book as a collection of guidelines, suggested but not mandatory ways of capturing the world of darkness in the format of a game. You decide what works best in your game, and you may freely use, alter, abuse, or ignore these rules at your whim. Action Blitz, hey, good to see you. So of all the rules, we talked about dice pools, attributes, and skills, contested roles, and all of this. At the end of it all, this is the one rule to rule them all. Are you having fun in telling the story you want to tell? Of visceral gore and horror? Of trying to tell a story that makes you come to terms with old scars and demons that you yourself have as a person? Or the frustrations you have with current present day IRL stuff? Or you don't want to touch any of that and you just want to go into a realm of fantasy where you are a superhuman entity leaping rooftop to rooftop and saving dear abuelas, walking out of bodegas late at night and getting harassed by would-be muggers. You want to play a superhero game? You can do that. You want to absolutely be the villains and monsters you are as vampires? You can. You can be the broody, edging 90s vampire who fights with a katana in one hand and an Uzi in the other while wearing sunglasses. You can have modern takes on style, modern takes on the language and the culture that has grown up in the years since 1991. You might have a vampire that uses social media actively to attract people to him or her, or to cause disinformation. And that could, whether or not you want it to be or mean it to be, a commentary on anything that any of us see on our computer screens or mobile phones, well, that's up to you all. Because ultimately, each of these games are yours. When you run a game, don't worry if someone is going to disagree with the pool of dice that you made. Don't worry if someone disagrees with the language that you've used. You're not playing for them. Obviously, if you're using a platform like Twitch or you're putting it on YouTube, there are overarching terms of service of things that you can or cannot say or present. But if you're playing at your dinner table, you're not playing to people who are Twitter stereotypes. You're not playing to people who have played since the beginning and this is the only one way to play. And if you don't do Dex Drive, you are not playing World of Darkness. If you are playing a character who refers to people in certain ways that then or now have fallen out of favor, that doesn't mean that in your heart of hearts, you as the actual human being think that way nor treat the people in your life. But the monster you're piloting does. So run something fun and compelling. Run something that is... run something that can explore that personal and or political horror. Or be a complete power fantasy where you get to do all the cool stuff of lifting cars over your head, chucking them across the street. Because in your World of Darkness, maybe the Second Inquisition doesn't matter. Maybe vampires are actually able to walk out on the street and you are a superhero. Everyone loves you. What kind of a world is it? Do you think people would line up to offer their blood to you if you were the hero of the city? Why can't you do that in World of Darkness? Because you absolutely can. Can you imagine flipping that around where instead of humans discovering vampires exist and hunting them down, they actually flock in almost like people aligned to religions or political groups or something, where or sports teams, if we want to keep it, out of more sensitive areas, where you might have a human that is unironically wearing a Suck Me Harder shirt, or openly wears a Clan Brujah like it's a Cleveland Browns jersey, or formerly Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians baseball hat, or in social media, I think this was what was the show? True Blood. True Blood. There was a name for humans who wanted to engage in recreational behavior with vampires that was not necessarily food related. And those humans were called fangbangers. Can you have a social media controversy where fangbangers join the Don't Slut Shame movement? What kind of a world is it? Interesting, right? What kind of a world is your World of Darkness if an artificial blood was discovered and vampires didn't have to feed off of humans? Can you imagine if the vampires actually united instead of having to fight over territory and blood, because they all just invented a way that they can sustain themselves and then even come out and wield their power more overtly as super villains?
They do, though, Axon, again, unless you say it's different in your world, the older you get as a vampire, the less you're able to do that and gain sustenance from it. You reach an age where your vitae, your corporeal form is so old that you cannot process animal blood like human blood. There are exceptions, either individually or as per an entire setting or chronicle. Absolutely. But that can be the scary element of, as much as a young vampire says, I'm never going to hurt someone, I'm only going to feed off of overt criminals, bullying grandmas, buying late night groceries, you're going to run out of rats and you're going to run out of street thugs pretty quickly before you have to start compromising your morals and expanding your approved targets. And then there's a point where you are so potent, you've lived so long, you are so unlike humans, you are naturally more powerful, and as such, your body requires a more potent fuel than rats or goats or horses can accommodate. Or you need to drink more. In the mechanical sense, no longer can you drink 1 point of blood to sate 1 point of hunger. Now you have to drink 2 points of blood to sate 1 point of hunger. And now you're going through more people more disastrously, bringing them closer to death with each feeding. And then you get older, and you naturally grow more potent, because fledgling vampires, I don't think, in a broad sense, can conceptualize the fact that night one of being a vampire, you are an Eldritch horror. Well, I died just last night. I have 5 fingers and on each hand. I have 2 eyes. I do all the things I did in life. Well, yeah, I have to feed off people, but I mean, I had to eat, vegetables and steak and or like meat or potatoes or bread or whatever, right? Is that really any different? Sure, it is different, but I can moralize it. There's a point where you are, you can look at an elder vampire if you ever get to see an elder vampire, and that's what you become. You twist into a monster, if not overtly, then internally, because then there's a point where you can no longer just drink 2 points of blood to sate 1 point of hunger. Now, you might need to actually kill your victims by exsanguination in order to recover 2 points of hunger. There's a scale, I know in this book, and I think in prior. And then there's points in time where you gotta crack open a couple humans and completely drain them to have a standard hunger. And it doesn't even sate you anymore. If you're a young vampire and you kill someone through exsanguination, for that night, you're full. Oh, to be full. But you reach a point where you will never be full. The hunger is always there. And you have to drink more. And more. In order to function. In order to wake up at night. If you rouse your old blood. Which makes older vampires scarier. Because when they do something, it carries weight and purpose. Because if you run into an elder vampire, in an out-of-character terms, and you may not want to metagame through playing a fledgling, or even an ancilla might not really realize this. Imagine what it takes for an elder on the court
The prince doesn't get to go into torpor a decade at a time to try and save blood and the amount of atrocities needed to continue. An elder prince who is awake every night to maintain the domain. Can you imagine what that prince must need to feed in order to not slip closer and closer to letting the beast take over through hunger? And if that beast takes over such an ancient being, the destruction that can be wrought by a thing that has lost every shred. One humanity is at least one humanity. But if the beast takes over fully, it is inhumane. It is a horror wearing the shape of a person. Or your World of Darkness game? You don't get into the details. It's just presumed everyone feeds. It's kind of swept under the table. Now, what cool adventure awaits for you on the horizon as the moon rises high? And you can do that too. And I want you to have fun with it as well.